This is a WKYT podcast.
And with that, we start the latest episode of, oh man, that's real loud, sorry. Conversations with Victor and Andrea. Another spooky episode. Okay, that's all the sound effects I can handle.
Oh, did you have
go.
the sound effects on?
Yeah, I had the sound effects on.
Well, I can no longer hear anything because I tried to wear the headphones and I got blasted out twice.
I might have blown your eardrums out. Sorry
Just
about that
a
one.
little bit.
We're still figuring things out here. But you know, it's a work in progress, and I feel like we are making progress.
I wish people could see you right now. He's got like a hoodie on and a shirt and tie, and it's just a really good combination, like a zip-up hoodie.
I love hoodies.
I love hoodies too.
Oh, you just mean the contrast of the hoodie and the tie?
I like a zip-up hoodie. Otherwise, I like a sweatshirt. I don't like a full hoodie. I don't know why. It's a weird...
You mean a sweatshirt with a hood on it? You don't like those?
Correct. Don't like that. It has to have a zipper.
Oh, yeah, no. I like both.
I feel very constricted.
Yeah?
I don't know why. But a sweatshirt is like comfy and fine.
But these you can escape when you need to. Is that what it is?
I got to have an exit plan, exit strategy with my clothing. Ooh, nope.
All right, yeah,
that
sounded
right.
weird. All right. Landry, what have you been up to?
Halloween shopping, in a way.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll talk about this in the next episode. I think we're going to do a whole episode on costumes, so I'll save that content for next time, but it's been interesting.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, I'm excited about that. And I haven't talked to you really since Mandy and I got back from seeing Phil Collins.
Oh, how was it?
How much fun that was. It was great. He was fantastic. He spent the whole time, well, most of it sitting down. He stood up for In the Air Tonight, which was fantastic. But yeah, so he comes out with a cane, and everybody, they couldn't tell if it was a joke or not. I think anybody who didn't really know his situation, they thought he was playing it off. But he's actually had a few back surgeries. He's had a foot surgery. He's had a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, no.
And he sits down. He's like, had a few back surgeries. My foot's blanked. And he's like, but that doesn't mean we can't have a good time. And then he just starts into Against All Odds, which is one of his, biggest hits. So everybody's like, oh, he's starting with a big one. And his son is his drummer, his 18-year-old son.
What?
Yeah.
Is he good? He's got to be.
He's really, really good. And so, yeah, and it was also interesting to me because I've been to a few other concerts recently, Justin Timberlake and Bruno Mars, where I felt like the entire crowd was on their phone the entire time.
Ew.
And this one... not so much, and I think it's because it's an older crowd.
I was going to say it's because that's a different generation.
Yeah, and so it was interesting to see that, except for when the air, I Can Feel It in the Air Tonight, or In the Air Tonight, whenever that started.
Everybody's like, gotta have
all
this.
the phones came out
have this on.
because everybody wanted that drum solo moment where it's like when the drums hit, yeah.
Yes.
So at that moment, everyone had their phones out.
And that's cool that that's his kid.
Yeah, getting to do
really
that.
Cool.
And so, yeah, there was even a neat moment where he talked about how his son had been listening to his old albums, and he's like, he found one song he liked, so he's going to play it now on the piano.
He found one.
That's what he liked. He's like, just the one. So his son came down and played piano while he sang.
Aren't you looking forward to your daughter growing up and just being like, you are so lame?
Yeah. I've been watching your old newscasts. I don't think that's going to happen.
Probably not. But I feel like they come around. Kids always come back around, but they go through that phase where everything you do is just the worst.
So, he ended with, Susudio, and then the encore was Take Me Home. So it was a really good time.
Okay, I love it.
And the Yum Center, of course, you know it well from our trip to see the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, yes. My first trip there. It's a very nice venue.
Yes,
I just thought of my favorite thing, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to forget it before we get to it. So remind me.
Okay.
Here's your teaser. Cheapskate.
Cheapskate. All right, we will do that. So this week is part 2 of our conversation with my friend Benito Cereno. Cereno, sorry. I keep mispronouncing his last name.
I am having a hard time because you've talked about him before, and you've always called him Benito Cereno. So I
know. Well, I never said his last name.
Well, some people are weird about correcting people, so he probably never corrected you, and now it's stuck in your head one way, and it's tough to unlearn that.
So there we go. So, but I got it right now, I think.
I just really like him.
Yeah, he's a real good guy and very knowledgeable. And it's funny because I was contacting him about it. Hey, do you want to be on the podcast? And he said, yeah. How long do I have to talk? Because I feel like if I'd said, hey, we're going to talk about this for 3 hours, he said, no problem.
Yeah.
So even as it was, our hour-long conversation that I split in half, he still had more to go. And this is exciting. We're going to plan to have him back around Christmas because as much as he enjoys Halloween and monsters and stuff, his favorite thing is Christmas and like Christmas legends around the world and all that kind of stuff. And there is an entire pantheon of Christmas. You just think of Santa Claus, but there's a lot more out there, especially around the world. And I think Krampus is maybe the most well-known secondary.
Right.
But yeah, there are. So I'm excited for him to come talk to us about that as we get closer to Christmas.
A lot of people are going to be talking Hallmark movies. Not us. Not this podcast.
So there you go.
Nope.
Well, I don't know. It depends on who we have on, because I feel like we can't get away from them too much. But,
I like Hallmark movies. I do.
I know you. Do.
I can't help it.
Oh, trust me. We, our Amazon account, one of the channels that we're subscribed to is the Hallmark Christmas movies.
Aww.
So there we go.
I love it.
So that'll come around. All right, everybody. Here's part 2 of our conversation with Benito Cereno. All right, we're back. Week 2. Andrew, you're loving this.
I really well.
You are.
It's all new to me, which is really fun. I'm enjoying this, and I'm just learning so much. Like, there are places I didn't even know existed.
There you go. Back for week 2.
Hope Lick.
Yeah.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, you know. It's
but I knew Waddy. But let's explore more territory.
Yeah, Benito, you had mentioned the Harrington Lake pig monsters. Harrington Lake, not too far from here. I drive by it all the time whenever I'm going down.
I have family members with last name Pope and last name Harrington, so I feel very connected to all of these.
Yeah, most states have some kind of lake monster. Mm-hmm. They're very common. Ours is the eel pig. I saw somebody call it Harry the Harrington Lake monster. Which
now, is it an eel body with a pig head?
That's correct.
All right.
Well done,
yeah.
Victor.
It's eel-shaped body, some 15 feet long or something like that, with like a pig head with the snout and then a curly pigtail at the end.
That's a nice.
Oh my god!
Was it possible they just saw a pig in the water?
I mean, maybe. Some people think maybe it's just an alligator, or there's specific types of fish. I've seen it suggested as well, but it's supposed to. It swims as fast as a fishing boat, apparently. And there's sightings of it since the 1920s, basically since they flooded the area to make the lake. But the most prominent sighting was in 1972 by a UK professor, which gave it a little bit more cachet. And so people were like, well, a professor said that he saw this swimming pig monster. But, there's all sorts of theories about like, oh, maybe there's a colony of these pig beasts in the limestone that got dredged up when they, whatever. So there's all sorts of different possible.
Could have been prehistoric animals, yeah.
Well,
or some kind, or like it's some kind of archaic beast like your coelacanth or whatever that suddenly pops up.
Like in the movie Piranha.
Yeah.
They all came in, out of the underwater lake.
Well, the water's so scary. It's such a mystery to us still, and that water is very dirty and hard to see very far in front of your face. So it's like, it's so scary. You don't know what's coming at you.
I remember when I was young, we'd go to Cave Run and they'd tell us, now watch out, there's 40 feet catfish.
My mom says this all the time.
Down in Cave Run Lake.
Yep, that kind of story is very common too. Yeah, the giant catfish.
And I would worry about this giant catfish.
I do too.
Yeah.
I still do.
Wait, tell me about the devil monkeys.
There's not. I mean, they're monkey-like creatures that run around and they make mischief.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
That's pretty much it. You want to know? Like, you're asking about like more credible, believable ones. There's the Milton lizard, which is just a giant lizard. So like this is one again where it's like really one instance of a specific sighting in 1975. Somebody saw what appeared to be a 15-foot monitor lizard in Trimble County, and they described it as having big eyes similar to a frog's. Beneath its mouth was an off-white color, and there were black and white stripes crossways of its body with quarter-sized speckles over it. And then there were conjectures about like, oh, maybe some eggs, because it was somewhere near like a junkyard or something, and somebody thinks that maybe one of the trucks in the junkyard had lizard eggs in it from like out west, and where monitor lizards would be, and that they had gotten transported here or something. So yeah, maybe someone just saw a big lizard. I don't know, but I
like the zebra stripes
and,
though.
And then
nice touch.
There's also very Kentucky, the meth hogs.
No.
Yeah,
that sounds like the name of a club that you know.
Yeah, and
like a gang. Watch out for the meth hogs.
Yeah, I mean you can probably guess They're wild boars.
Pigs that got on meth.
They got the waste from meth labs. They consumed it.
This is the most credible to me
And
thus far.
they mutated into giant 1,000-pound hogs.
We've done stories on these.
Were there stories of like the meth gators?
Yeah.
Florida,
Yeah, the meth gator.
Everything happens in Florida.
Yeah.
So this predated the meth gators. This is the meth hogs.
Yeah, meth hogs. Yeah. Those are the main monsters. You guys want to talk about ghosts?
We are all about some ghosts now.
Absolutely.
So unfortunately, Louisville gets most of the good ghosts to the point where like they advertise the old Louisville neighborhood as America's most haunted neighborhood. Yeah, they've got most of the good stuff. Waverly Hills, of course, I think is probably the most famous. I think people know it was a tuberculosis hospital from 1910 to 1961. The story goes that it was closed down for like poor treatment of patients and that kind of stuff. I've been there. They do lots of ghost tours there. It's supposed to be very haunted.
What was it like when you were inside, Andrea?
Oh, I mean, I was terrified.
But it was also dark and late night and there's the chute where they threw the dead bodies down and like the secret tunnels underneath or whatever, and so there's all the people see different things, shadow people and someone pulled someone's ponytail on a tour or whatever, and you can hear children running around and that kind of stuff. So, it's just general kind of spooky. The mind does crazy things.
Yeah, exactly. But kind of general spooky building place. But yeah, that's probably the most famous haunted place. Lexington's got plenty of ghost things,
So we have ghost walks during
Halloween.
Yeah,
for sure. There's enough to support those, right? Like you've got historical buildings like you can Ghost of Mary Todd in the Mary Todd Lincoln House, or Ghost of Henry Clay at the Ashland Estate, or whatever.
There are two I need to ask about because my high school is reputed to be haunted.
Yeah, I'm sure.
West Jessamine, do you know anything about that?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, inform us, Andrea.
Well, I don't know. I never
Who would haunt
all
that
I
high
would
school?
ever hear is that we had a very haunted high school, but I never really got the backstory. It was just like something I'd always heard, but didn't really
The ghost of
get
Andrea
the
Walker's
context.
youth.
Well, there was also
Wonders.
A ghost trail out at the horse park.
Yeah.
I think they do some stuff where there's a woman that's apparently shows up in the mirror or in a window, and you can see her, and it was just. They knew how tall this woman was, and there was no way that you would be able to see her from where she was standing in the mirror, so she had to have been floating. And they had a really cool little tour out there that I did a story on that, and it was fun.
Nice. I feel like any sufficiently old building is going to have ghost stories around it. And, Lexington's got no shortage of those. And I'm probably not in Lexington, but nearby Richmond has Whitehall, the Cassius Clay estate, which has ghost tours out there as well. Probably the most famous Lexington ghost, from my experience at least, is Constantine Rafinesque. Do you know this story?
Transylvania.
Transylvania,
Oh, yeah?
there you go.
Look at me. I've done this story too, so
Yeah,
maybe I have done a few stories on theme for Halloween.
There you go. So, like, if you, anyone at Transy knows this story.
Mm-hmm. They have Raff Week.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do. And so Constantine Rafinesque was absolutely a real person, right? 100% historical, super important scientist, right? Like, he came up with...
Caesar real, as you would put it.
Yes, as we say on... More than that. Benjamin Harrison real,
Okay.
as we call it, where it's someone who was in, like, not living memory, but, much more recent modern times. He developed a theory of evolution before Darwin did. He wrote ethnohistories of the native people of the Ohio valleys. He's got lots of species of plants named after him. He's really important, right? Very accomplished, absolutely real. Where the legend starts to come in is when you hear about his behavior. The idea is like he was more favored by the students than by the administration at Transy. He started teaching there in 1819. He taught botany, of course, which was his main thing, but he also gave private lessons in French, Italian, and Spanish. He apparently would skip classes himself because he liked to look at nature, and he also had pretty progressive, forward-thinking ideas that the administration didn't super like. Also, possibly he was sleeping with the president's wife, and so
right.
That brought him into conflict there.
And now we know why he's a legend.
Yeah. The story is he had a heated argument for whatever reason with the president of Transy, Horace Hawley, in 1826. So Rafinesque was fired, And as he left, he cursed the school, and the exact words he says were, "Damn thee and thy school as I place a curse upon you."
Nice.
And so soon, Holly was removed as the president of the college. The state cut off funding to the university.
Stuff happened after this.
And then after that, he died of yellow fever. Then 2 years later, the school's administration building burnt down.
This, seriously.
Yeah, and the only thing that was left were Rafinesque's papers.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. I love this.
7 years later, they built the new building, Old Morrison, which is obviously still there. But it was halted because of the cholera epidemic. If you remember that, the Lexington cholera epidemic. That's one of my favorite local stories about William King Solomon, the town drunk, who was the only one who didn't get cholera because he didn't drink
Heck
water.
yeah.
And so he was
Town drunk.
so he was able to bury the bodies.
What is
He
his
avoided-
name? Because I may name my first child.
His name is William Solomon. But
In honor.
they called him King Solomon. He was a white man who was a slave owned by a black woman, and so he's real. Like his body is in I want to say Lexington Cemetery. You can go and find his grave.
But he-
Speaking of
But he
bodies,
only drank alcohol,
yeah,
and as a result, didn't get cholera.
Cholera's passed through water.
hilarious.
That's the part that's a little more legendy. But yeah, I mean, he was a real person who absolutely did bury dozens and dozens of bodies during the cholera epidemic. Anyway, getting back to Rafinesque. So the idea is that every 7 years on a cycle, something terrible would happen at Transy. Someone would die, a building would suffer damage or whatever. So in 1840, to try and stop this cycle, a secret society on campus called the Hemlock Society went to go dig up Rafinesque's body from a pauper's grave where he was buried in Philadelphia, and they brought the body back to Transy. Rafinesque died in 1840. This happened in 1924.
Okay.
I was like,
wait,
those numbers aren't right. Yeah, so in 1924, the society goes to get his body, and the body's still there. It's there in a crypt in Old Morrison.
at Transy.
At Transy.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've been in there.
And
So they brought him home, and did everything stop after that?
well, hold on.
Okay.
So they not only did that, they on his tomb they inscribed the words "Honor to whom honor is overdue," which really trying. But no, the cycle continued. Suicides, murders, strange fires on campus, more or less unabated every 7 years or so. And there was another big fire. Old Morrison suffered fire damage in 1969, and the entire building was gutted by flame except for, the tomb of Rafinesque.
Can you believe
Yeah.
this? Like, it's so
How's there not
awesome.
a movie of this?
Yeah.
That's why I got so hyped when he said it. I was like, yes!
And so, according to firefighters on the scene, the fire formed a wall of flame that ended at the entrance to the crypt. In the doorway, they saw the figure of a man who laughed derisively, disappeared into the flames. And then once the fire was put out, they went into the crypt, and it was cold inside. And so they continue to pay homage to Rafinesque, or Raffi as they call him, or Raff. And one of the campus eating halls, the Raffskeller, is named after him. And they have the whole week leading up to Halloween. There's a whole thing where there's I think a raffle where somebody gets to spend the night in the crypt
Yes,
with the
yes,
two.
yes.
And,
I talked to somebody that stayed in it. Ah!
Yeah, so it's like,
wow.
well, if they did all this, they rescued his body, they've done all this honor, why is there still this cycle of scary things? Well, apparently, the pauper's graveyard, where he was buried, was the bodies were arranged in such a way that there might be up to 6 people in one grave.
So they got the wrong
They
body?
got the wrong. So it seems that
There could be parts of him in there.
the Hemlocks came back with the body of one Mary Ann Passamore, and not Constantine Rafinesque.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, so that's the story there. That's from my experience, that's probably the best known Lexington ghost. But
That's pretty good.
It's so good. But it's just that, like, it's legit. I need to look up, because I used to know when the next one was going to be.
Ooh, yeah.
If we follow by the 7-year thing, and we should definitely do a story on the 7-year. Or at least just keep an eye out, honestly. Like,
Something bad, yeah.
and just say, like, because what a good tag. Oh, by the way, Raph's Curse. Hashtag Raph's Curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty terrifying.
It is.
Here's another one I want to talk about. This one's not from Lexington, but this is another really famous one. One that would, especially among ghost people, is very well known. Bobby Mackey's Music World. Are you familiar with this? It's a honky tonk owned by Bobby Mackey, who's a country music star. It's in Wilder, Kentucky.
Okay.
It has a hellmouth in the basement.
A what?
A portal to hell.
It has a portal to hell in the basement. So
how did this story start?
So this one has a very
I love this.
this one's got a complicated history,
Okay.
and I think and you need to understand most of what I'm about to say is not historically true.
Okay, I'm ready for that.
Nevertheless,
We're with you.
Nevertheless, okay. So the location, it was originally a slaughterhouse in the 1850s until the 1890s, and there was a basement in the building that had a drain, and they would pour like the animal refuse and blood into this well in the basement, and then it was abandoned in the 1890s, and according to legend, an occult group would perform rituals there, and they would dump their sacrifices down the well, right? So we've already got hundreds,
Going
probably,
on, yeah.
hundreds of dead animals, human sacrifices, I don't know, who could say? And then apparently a member of this cult murdered a pregnant woman after they performed a botched abortion with dental tools on her. Sorry, this story is upsetting. So
God!
I'm sorry to any.
We'll put a warning out there.
Yeah, I
I
was
mean,
gonna
it is
say
a very
any-
spooky episode.
Sorry to any normal people listening to this
I
episode.
know. They tuned out long ago.
Yeah. But yeah. So okay. So they tried to use dental tools to perform an abortion. They failed. They cut off her head and they dumped her head in the well. And it said he never confessed to where he hid the dead because he feared the wrath of Satan. Then anyway, in 1920s, the site became a speakeasy where who knows how many murders might have occurred in there.
Of course, yes. According to legend.
In the 30s, it became a legitimate tavern and casino, but the owner was pressured out of the place by the mob, so he cursed the place and committed suicide. The daughter of that owner of the club fell in love and became pregnant by one of the singers in the club, and when his father found out, he used his mob connections to have the singer hanged from the rafters in the dressing room.
Let me know when this starts getting into actually happened. Okay.
Well,
Who knows?
yeah. The daughter poisoned herself in the now infamous basement.
Oh.
The club was closed in 1978
A
after
lot of bad stuff happened in that basement.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the Hellmouth is.
Okay,
the
that makes
portal
sense,
to hell
yeah.
is there. It was closed in 78 after a number of fatal shootings on the premises. And then finally, Bobby Mackey, popular country singer from Northern Kentucky, he bought it, turned it into a honky-tonk. It's still
That actually happened. I was gonna
yeah,
say,
that part is absolutely true. Here we are into real fact. You can go there. You can ride the mechanical bull. It's there.
Oh, I want to visit that place.
They
now.
have a sign. They have a warning outside by the ticket
Don't
office.
go to the basement.
No, it's just like warn because it's not just the basement. So it's a huge sign that's like warning. Enter here at your own risk. People have experienced ghosts. It's a whole thing.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So
now I kind of want to go.
yeah, well, so when one of the employees told Bobby Mackey that, he was like, "Hey man, this place is pretty haunted," he was like, "Okay," and he went and sprinkled holy water over the well, and that just made it angrier, apparently. And so there's a number of places where people have experienced ghosts. The most common place that I'm aware of is the bathroom, and there's apparently a ghost of a man in a cowboy hat who will pop up in the bathroom and has done physical violence to people in there. And in fact, in 1994, a guy sued Bobby Mackey's for being attacked by the bathroom ghost. But, obviously the case was dismissed. But,
Yeah, well, how are you going to get money from a ghost?
yeah, that's right.
What does it care?
You
those
get money
ghost
from
damages.
Bobby Mackey.
Well, that's not Bobby Mackey's responsibility.
I mean, Bobby Mackey's
Legally, I mean, I
Bobby
don't-
Mackey sprinkled that holy water. I feel that's due diligence.
He did what he could.
Yeah,
Honestly,
exact-
it's his fault.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
You can't. And how are you going to get a ghost lawyer? That's the other thing. You're going to have to find a ghost lawyer, a ghost judge. It's got to be
Yeah.
tried in ghost court.
yeah, you gotta go.
I was told that the ghost appointed Bobby Mackey's lawyer to be his lawyer.
It's like in the
as well.
WWE when Hornswoggle got upset at DX and he took them to Little People's Court and they had to go under the ring and there was a little judge, there was a little jury. Very similar thing. You have to go get a ghost judge.
Yeah,
I'd imagine there are some ghost judges
it's-
around here. I mean,
it's very much like that.
yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I wanted to make sure. So that's one of my favorites. But I mean, Bobby Mackey's it's really
Bobby
famous
Mackey's
and
flourishing today.
You know,
it's wild.
I had an ex that really liked the show Supernatural, and I think that's why I know what some of this
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
is that you're
yeah,
talking about, because I would just passively watch it sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. If you're
They
doing
talk
a show
about
like
cryptids
that,
and stuff.
there-
Yeah.
yeah, you can.
And, like,
there's so
portals
much
to hell and all that
material.
kind of stuff,
The
yeah.
Hellmouth, yeah. I think Buffy the Vampire Slayer also had.
Yeah, they had a Hellmouth.
Alright.
Their city was I don't. Do we want to hear some of these Louisville legends? here
Sure, a
that they
couple
have
more.
here?
We probably got about another, I'd say 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay.
Before
Cool,
Andrea
cool,
has to
cool.
go run on set.
So let me I'll hit these quick then.
I'm real good at reading,
So,
so I can probably just go down there and do it.
All right.
So Louisville has what's called the Witch's Tree, which is like a really gnarled.
I've heard of
I think it's a
this.
maple tree, and like people hang trinkets and things on it. The story is that like witches used to go there and like do rituals, and then the city cut down the tree, and so they cursed the area, and they said 11 months, watch out. And then 11 months later, like the worst tornado had ever hit Louisville touched down, and a lightning struck the stump of the tree, and then the current tree grew up immediately
Through that?
Yeah. So anyway, that
Marvin Bartlett did a story on this on Spirit of the Bluegrass.
nice.
It's really good.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Witch's Tree. Another one that is possibly tied to a famous British monster, Spring-Heeled Jack.
Well,
Is
I've heard
kind
of
of like
Spring-Heeled
it's
Jack,
kind of
yeah.
like the most famous English monster. Who was a guy or a demon or something who could bounce around like he had springs in his heels, right? And there were, and so like in the 1800s, there's all these sightings. He became a hugely popular character with like the Penny Dreadfuls and things about him. But he was sighted in Louisville in the 1800s, 1880. They reported a tall and thin weirdo hopping around, ripping off women's clothes. And then he eventually he escaped. He was described as wearing a strange helmet and a cape and having an eerie blue light that shone like a flame from his chest. And that might be related to a similar creature they have in Louisville called the Demon Leaper, which is described as being basically like a gargoyle. It's sighted on the roof of the Walnut Street Baptist Church, and it has wings and can fly and jump and such.
I have a question. Okay, so Fancy Farm. Apparently there's a thing called, have you heard of the Liar's Tree?
No, I don't know that one.
Okay, so apparently like it's this tree that is like cursed that has been struck by lightning multiple times, and they ended up calling it the Liar's Tree, and they would have all the politicians come give their speeches under the Liar's Tree.
Wow.
And I don't know. Bill knows a lot more about that, so maybe we'll have him tell us that story at some point. But I was like, you might know.
That's
I keep asking him things that.
No, I like that. Well, there's a lot. I mean,
I know.
every single town has its own thing. In Powell County, the Native Tunnel, we'd go up there at night, we'd turn the lights off, and supposedly you could hear stuff or see stuff. There'd be, monsters crawling around. And so, yeah, I don't know. I've enjoyed this.
Nice. Let me do I'm going to just quick hits.
Yes.
So also
Honorable mentions.
in Cherokee Park in Louisville, the statue of Pan comes to life at a full moon and makes mischief.
I didn't know that, but I have seen that statue, all right?
There's what they call the Headless Woman of Iroquois Park, who's a headless ghost, walks around. Hot Rod Haven is an area, Mitchell Hill Road, and there's a couple who crashed there, and there's ghosts down there. Then in Prospect, outside of Louisville, there's Sleepy Hollow Road. That's very famous for a number of things. Most famously, there's a ghostly hearse that will drive your car, like ram your car off the road. They also have what's called a crybaby bridge, which is one of those things where if you drive across the bridge and roll your windows down, you can hear babies crying. It's supposed to be because people threw their unwanted babies off the bridge.
Oh my God.
There's stories of satanic
Weird
rituals
that my
there.
dad, a police officer,
Who knows that?
would call stuff the Crybaby Bridge, and now I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe he
No,
actually
yeah.
worked those kind of cases, and like, oh.
I don't know. A lot of cities have crybaby bridges, but so Sleepy Hollow Road has a number of things. People have reported lost time there and blah blah blah. Let's see. There's the Hanging Man of the Allendale Train Tunnel, which is in Ellesmere. It's a tunnel, and people see a ghost of a man hanging. The Witch Girl of Pilot's Knob. That's a pretty good one. It's a little girl that she and her mom were burned as witches, and then to protect themselves, they put the girl in a steel-lined coffin encased in concrete and covered in gravel, and then surrounded the grave with a wrought iron fence made of white crosses. And so her ghost is supposed to pace around inside that area. And even worse, outside there's a creature they call the Watcher of Pilot Knob, who is apparently trying to snatch the soul of the girl away, but is also fended off by the fence of crosses.
Is that fence still there?
Yeah, it's there.
So so they actually buried those people?
Well, I don't know that that's what's actually in there.
Okay.
There is
fence.
a fence around a grave that is said to be the witch girl's grave. Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see.
Have you heard of what is it? Divining rods.
Divining rods. Yeah.
Divining rods. Do you think those work? Because they had me
no.
use them at the horse park.
No, it's like,
Yes, they
do you believe that they do work?
I was holding them.
But here's the thing. You know what? Growing up,
this is why I'm into it, because I'm so gullible.
a
I'm like,
lot of my family believed in
yes.
that stuff. They'd be like, "Ooh, look at this! I'm going to figure out
I
where the
100%
water
believed
is."
it, and this was only a couple of years ago.
I mean, there are people who still do that kind of stuff. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but just because I don't believe it's real doesn't mean it isn't.
That's
Okay.
right. There you
There
go.
you go.
And so almost to the end of what I have, but I want to talk about Elsewhere, Kentucky, which is a city that no longer exists on the map. It's supposed to have been basically wiped off the map in a literal and metaphorical sense, because in 1936 the school teacher poisoned all the kids in the school, and then subsequently anybody who tried to go into the schoolhouse disappeared, and one time they went in and just found bones, whatever. So that's this whole urban legend about
Where was it? Okay, no, I need to hear about this now. Where was it
Elsewhere.
near? What was it near originally?
I tried to find that. I don't.
It literally doesn't exist.
Yeah,
now,
it doesn't
so.
exist. So yeah,
Well,
like I don't
do you know like what year this supposedly was?
1936. And apparently the town, so according to what I found, April 2nd, 1953, the town was listed in the Courier Journal as abandoned for health and safety reasons. I don't know if that's true. I found that written. I don't know if that's true. I think that story is pretty interesting. But I want to hit just a couple.
It's almost like Silent Hill.
A couple of witches, because Appalachia is full of witch stories, right? You got witches, you got witchmen. And so like Harlan was invaded by witches in the 1850s.
Nice.
Began with cattle dying and hairballs being found in them, hide whole, but the internal part shot to pieces. Anyway, so people were walking around with their pockets turned inside out. That's the way to protect yourself from witches.
What?
Yeah.
It shows that you don't have anything.
Yeah, I guess.
You're like, look, I'm bored. Don't.
I feel like that's more for pickpocketers.
And then you get all sorts of specific like witch people. One I like because he's got a great name is Johnny Booger. Johnny Booger, who lived in Hazard or Knott County, maybe.
I bet Jim knows him.
I think.
What's Barb about Johnny Booger?
Yeah, she's from, yeah.
And so yeah, I mean maybe. But I mean, apparently it's a popular story out there.
Jeff
like,
Anderson.
Everyone's
He
like,
might know.
everyone's like, oh yeah, my grandma knew Johnny Booger or whatever.
Hold on.
You know.
He was a witch. Warlock. All right, yeah. That's Jeff. Andrea has gone. All right.
And so yeah, the idea is he could make inanimate objects move, and he could kill chickens by pointing at them.
And the chicken would just die.
yeah. And he could make sheep appear and disappear by waving his hand. He made a bed walk across the floor. And then also there's a guy who might be from Virginia, but he might be from the border area. I can't tell. Named Devil Bill Boggs, which is another excellent name.
Devil Bill Boggs. All right.
Devil Bill
Well,
Boggs.
We've got one listener for the podcast this
Yeah.
week. He's like, I haven't heard of this, but I'm
Oh,
afraid
okay.
to go in there now.
Let's go check it. Apparently, Johnny Booger could point at a chicken and make it die.
Yeah, that was the story. And then he could make he made like a bed walk across the room and that kind of stuff. He could make sheep appear and disappear. That's
We're gonna ask Barb about it if she knows it.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, Barb.
Spooky stuff. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
But
You missed the meth pigs.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Get ready for that. That's episode 1.
I will definitely be listening.
But yeah, Devil Bill Boggs, they said he got his unholy powers by standing on a certain hill, and then he would shoot the sun, like with the gun, and then he would curse God and bless the devil, and then the earth would shake, and if he could stand there without falling over from the earthquake, he would walk away with powers like shapeshifting and like bewitching guns and controlling animals. So those are the kind of stories that you get in Appalachia about different like witch people.
I love it all.
I
Yeah.
do too. This is why people are afraid to hike in the Appalachian Trail, I think.
Yeah, that and Deliverance probably.
Yeah, that probably didn't help.
Yeah, that
either.
didn't help either.
All right.
This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
I feel like we've got to have him back.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again, and I feel like there's probably a lot of stuff left untouched.
And this is actually like a, what do we call this? A cross podcast?
Oh,
you have,
because, well, the Apocalypse that I mentioned on here before.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, like, we need to promote you.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks.
Let's plug, man.
Yeah. Well, if people want to get involved in your work, where all can they find it?
Yeah, if you want to listen to my podcast, it's called Apocrypals, Apocrypals, and it's about me and my friend Chris, and we read biblical texts. We read canonical and apocryphal texts from the Bible. We look at anything that we feel informs modern religious belief, and so sometimes, even though it's not in the real Bible, it might influence the way people view Satan or angels or whatever, and we'll look at those things. And we don't go in order. We kind of do it as interest takes us. So we do cover, regular Bible. Our most recent episode was Revelation. It was a double-sized episode for episode 50, and so we you can listen to us talk for 2.5 hours about Revelation.
It is very much a kind of historical look at everything.
We try to look at both the traditional and historical views of the book. We try to be respectful of everybody's views. We're not trying to be rude about it. And so we look at the different approaches. And so on the one hand, I can say, like, it's a podcast where you can listen and learn what documentary hypothesis is, or you can learn the difference between dispensationalism and, amillennialism or whatever. And you go, oh, that sounds fascinating. But at the same time, it's really a show where we try to explain where the concept is, we say, if you can understand Star Wars, you can understand the Bible, right? And the foundational statement of the show was that we said Paul is an apostle the same way that Captain America is a founding Avenger. And if that sentence makes sense to you, then you're the correct audience for Apocryphals. Yeah, we use comic books and Star Wars and wrestling to explain the Bible, and but we also explain legitimate academic approaches. And so you can learn about the two source hypothesis of the Gospels, but you can also hear us talk about wrestling.
We're gonna finish
Thank
up
you
without
so
Andrea.
much.
Andrea
Yeah.
has the
No,
first.
you all keep
We'll
talking.
keep talking. Yeah, no,
But
you're
yeah,
good.
Andrea
has a show to go
Great
into.
Thank you
time.
thank you so much.
I enjoyed this so much. Yes. All right.
Bye, Andrea. We'll see you on the out.
Bye.
Bye.
So the Apocryphals podcast, but then you also have a very active Tumblr, or
That's true.
pseudo active.
Yeah, somewhat. Tumblr is in general is kind of on the way out a little bit. You can find me on Twitter, Benito_Cereno, BENITO_CERENO. I'm on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram. You can find me there. If you read comics, I have plenty of comics on comiXology.com. You can search for my name and you can find the stuff there. I write some horror comics. I write a lot of comedy stuff as well, some superhero stuff, different things.
I think it's likely that we may have you back in December to discuss Christmas
Absolutely.
myths and stuff,
Please
because
do
you
that.
are a huge fan of
Yeah.
Christmas and Christmas mythology.
Christmas is one of my main things, as I like to say. It's Christmas mythology is a thing I'm very commonly asked to talk about. I'm a regular consultant on the Weird Christmas podcast. You can check that out as well.
All
if you
right,
wanna
nice.
see me
And
there.
and you can search YouTube for your awful Christmas playlist. What's it? What do you call it?
Garbage Christmas.
Garbage Christmas. There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
I've been subjected to it a few times, and it is something.
Yeah, it really, there's two different ones. You can find them. It's the absolute worst of the worst Christmas songs I could find. Yeah.
All right, Benito. Well, we appreciate you coming on. And like I said, if anybody wants to reach out, they can find you on Twitter, and they can find you on your old podcast.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I had a great time.
All right. Well, Andrea, did you enjoy that?
Oh, I did. Well, you saw how excited I got for the whole
I know, Raph.
Reffinesque.
Yeah.
Only because I did that story and it was so interesting.
I did not even know that was a thing.
Right
and
in
it's,
our backyard.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something that people can actually go check out for themselves.
And while you're there, I don't know if I mentioned this during the podcast because that was recorded like last week or something, but their campus has switched and they have a new food company.
Yeah.
And I did a story on that not too long ago, and they had a day where they made everything locally. Everything was made from food sourced within 150 miles of the cafeteria. And it was incredible.
That's
like
exciting.
the same people that the same food company that works for Google and Twitter and Facebook and all those huge companies is now at Transy.
Wow.
And like it was the best food I've ever had, and the fact that like it's all local, so they're not making the same things they made in California
Because
they're
they're
making whatever is
It's
here.
locally sourced ingredients, yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Well, that's pretty neat, and to be able to get it from local farmers
and
and
it's
stuff.
open to the public, so you can go anytime. And I'm pretty sure dinner's like maybe $10, maybe, and it's all you can eat, which was a huge issue for me when I was in college.
yeah, me too.
Hence why, like, every cafeteria, I guess, is like that in school, and I gained so much weight.
You would always hear people talk about, just kind of put down cafeteria food, but the cafeteria at
cafeteria
EKU,
food.
well, in the cafeteria at EKU, I don't know. Maybe I don't have a lot of experience, but I always thought it was great, and I was always happy to eat there. And
Same.
yeah,
And I would always bring like baggies and get extra cereal to take home because we're cheap. Obviously, I know that. I know you know.
Speaking of being cheap, you said your favorite thing, cheapskate. I should remind you of that.
Okay. It actually doesn't have anything to do with being a cheapskate. But my
Okay.
favorite thing this week is just my mom and like the funny things she does and says. So Kristen Kennedy has fallen in love with my mother.
Okay.
She asked her for advice. My mom works at Stone Gallery in Nicholasville.
Nice.
Shameless plug. If you need granite, go see Mama Lindsay.
We'll see if we can get a new sponsor.
No, you won't. I promise. I know her boss.
Not gonna spend
It's
that?
not going to happen. But so it's just funny that her and Kristen have gotten so close because Kristen's looking in the market for granite. So she was talking to my mom, and they're just best of friends now.
2 peas in a pod.
And Kristen says, she's my favorite walker, which I should take offense to, but I don't because my mom is hilarious. And I like her more than I like myself, too.
You're like, well, all right.
So I'm like, fair enough. Yeah. But she calls yesterday and is like, oh my gosh, someone ran into my boss's house. And Kristen goes, oh, Vincent? And I'm like, okay, you two are getting way too close that you know her boss's first name. Okay.
See, I heard that in the newsroom the other day whenever somebody was like, well, this information is coming from Andrea's mom. And I said, what?
I was like, don't trust it. Don't
Yeah.
trust it. But basically, I was like, well, where is it? I was like, that sounds like something we may go cover. And she's like, I think he lives on Cheapskate Drive. And I was like, that's not a thing.
Yeah. You're like, first off, I should be living there.
Right. And she's like, well, that's what it is. She truly believed that's what it was. And the sad thing is, I quickly knew what she meant, which was Chesapeake. And I'm like, it takes a crazy person to understand a crazy person,
like,
so we can effectively communicate.
I speak crazy.
Yeah, it was Chesapeake. Wow. But anyway, her boss is fine. Everybody's fine. But somebody ran through his garage door.
I saw the pictures.
Hit his wife's car, which then hit the house.
Oh my
so
goodness.
it was quite a mess.
That is pretty
He
insane.
was not happy.
Oh, something else we didn't talk about at the beginning. We anchored together.
We did. And Victor hated it.
And I didn't hate it. And I've even
did
come to
hate
realize it. It was my expectations because I thought it would be like us just here having a good time.
Right.
But what I got was business Andrea.
I'm
and that's the thing. You were very serious and very professional and just on top of things. And I think I just wasn't used to that. You were so competent that I was like, what's going on here?
I don't understand.
No, I always think you're competent, but you were just like, no, we're looking through scripts, we're doing this. I don't really have time to chit chat. I'm taking care of business. And
I know.
You know what?
and Chris Bailey. Well, see,
I could learn a thing or two. That's what I'm saying.
It's harder here than I guess it was in Bowling Green because there's so much more content.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
There's also a very different flow between the morning shows and the evening shows.
oh, very different. And it's just, I could be familiar with my half-hour shows before going on set, so I could have more fun. But when you're here, and a lot of things come in at the last second, so it feels like you're never fully caught up. You're like reading ahead, like the break before you're about to read
that's usually
it,
I'm reading ahead, a block ahead.
which is tough. I mean, that's kind of scary to go live on TV reading something cold. So I try not to.
Yeah.
Because I've made some good bloopers doing that.
All right.
But
So-
I have been trying, and I love writing, and I
Yeah.
think I still have that producer bone in my body that I like to use every now and then. So like I love getting in and rewriting scripts and trying to make them sound like myself, which I think some people don't love, obviously. And I don't mean any offense by it. You know, I'm not
But
saying
you want to sound the
anybody
way you
here-
sound. You want
Yeah.
when you're talking, you want them to be your words.
Right. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying I'm a better writer than anyone else, but nobody's going to be a better writer for me than me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not a knock on anybody. I just
That
know
makes
how
sense.
I speak. No one knows me better.
I think I do a lot of my editing on the fly, literally as
Yeah.
I'm reading, which sometimes doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh, I try many times, and then I will talk myself into a circle and just be like, I don't know.
I gotta
can't
back
get
this
out
up,
of
yeah.
this.
So that was so. And then as this comes out, this may come out before or after we've done it, but we're going to be anchoring together again
Tonight, yeah.
tonight. Yeah,
When Barb got sick.
I know. Get better, Barb. And yeah, she has filled in for Amber while Amber's been gone to Hawaii. And it's always fun anchoring with Barb. But yeah, yesterday she sounded a little hoarse.
I was already preparing to do the 10 in the noon today, and I guess
Yeah.
I didn't think about the evening shows. I forgot she's filling in all night, so it makes sense, I guess. I probably should have thought that through a little more. Maybe we should. It's kind of like maybe I wouldn't have done the mornings at all and just come in and do the evenings, but
Well, this is the time of year whenever everybody starts taking vacations, in chunks, because there are certain blocks where if you anchor, you are not allowed to take vacation,
Right.
essentially. So we all have to kind of circle around each other. And so that's why
Sweet,
you'll
sweet.
see
I think
big
people
stretches,
are familiar with that concept.
which isn't as big a thing anymore because
No.
we kind of do ratings year round.
Right, which
So-
I like.
Yeah, I do too. It's more accurate,
Yeah,
the new rating system.
I agree.
All right,
I
that's
agree.
good.
All right, what's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is a new wrestling promotion.
Okay.
All Elite Wrestling, AEW. They've got a show on TNT on Wednesday nights now. AEW Dynamite. It's done by Cody Rhodes, although he's not allowed to use the last name Rhodes because WWE trademarked his full name. Anyway, the son of Dusty Rhodes.
Okay, I've heard of him.
Kenny Omega, who's famous in Japan. He's Canadian, although he's actually Canadian. And the Young Bucks. They started their own promotion along with Tony Khan, whose father is the owner of his family owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they also own a football club in London, I believe. So, long story short, Cody got fired from or asked to be let go from WWE. There was some writer who told them that they couldn't sell out an arena because he made some comment about he felt like there was enough going on in independent wrestling that they could sell out an arena. And some well-known writer said, that's not true, you couldn't do that. And he's like, fine, we'll see it. So he and these other guys put up the money to rent out the Sears Center in Chicago, and they created their own event, and they put up tickets, and it sold out in like half an hour.
Wow.
And it was so popular that they had a second one, and then the guy who owned the Jaguars basically came forward and was like, we could start our own wrestling company. And so now they've got a show on TNT every Wednesday night. Chris Jericho left WWE and joined them.
Oh my.
Yeah, John Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose.
I've heard that name too.
There you
I
go,
don't know
yeah.
why I know all these names.
So they Dustin's brother, who was Gold Dust in the WWE.
I've heard that too.
He's now there. Yeah.
Okay.
And so it reminds me a lot of it's interesting because it's kind of old school the way they do it. They don't really reference, one of the hard parts of being a WWE fan is they're constantly like, check us out on social media and just I don't know. It always feels like a show.
Right.
And everything's
Overly
really scripted.
produced. Yeah.
Whereas this one is a lot more organic. Bart and Bill, who watched wrestling in the 90s but got away from it, has started watching that.
Oh.
So we'll talk about it sometime.
So they're going old school.
Yeah, so their thing is they've brought in a lot of lapsed fans who've come back. And the issue is it's on Wednesday night, same night as NXT, which was WWE's like developmental product, but then it became its own brand, and NXT is probably the best wrestling in the world right now. But those are pretty much the only two I watch right now. I've given up on the main product because Kofi Kingston lost his title to Brock Lesnar in 6 seconds. It made me mad. And I was like, I'm done with this. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. After a year-long reign of just, he won at WrestleMania last year, almost year-long. I mean, it was just, it was very aggravating.
So Mr. X really likes, what's it called?
UFC?
Yeah. How'd you know that?
Because that's kind of a corollary. If somebody isn't really big into wrestling, but they like other stuff.
Well, I'm just amazed.
And Cain Velasquez from USC just joined WWE.
Okay. Anywho, he paid $60.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched him do it twice. $60
That's how much
for a pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. And many of these fights end in 6 seconds, the main event.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you're going to...
People, I mean, it doesn't take much.
I mean,
to
you
knock
get more than
out.
one fight. Like, there are a lot of pre-events to the main, but
There was a huge UFC boom for a while.
Right.
You were surprised that he spent that much money?
Yes. Well, that hurts my heart, but I just couldn't believe it. That's too much of a risk for me. I need to get my money's worth. That's why I got fat in college. When I go to a buffet, I want a buffet. I want to get my money's worth. I don't want 6 seconds.
No, that's
I
why.
want a salad at a buffet.
That's why I had the WWE Network, because it was $10 a month and you got all the pay-per-views. But I let that lapse because I could watch NXT on Hulu.
Still, that makes a lot more sense to me.
I got tired of them getting my money. It was a principal thing.
I see.
But anyway, AEW Dynamite on Wednesday nights.
Look it up.
That's my favorite thing this week. And yours is your mom and Kristen Kennedy's relationship.
Yes, and just my mom's craziness. She keeps me entertained constantly.
Well, I love that. All right, well, Andrea, we'll be back next week with our last Halloween episode, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. We're coming to an end.
All right, well, it's been a fun, spooky month. Bye, Andrea.
Bye.